still a lot of reaction to the fact that Neymar, in the end, didn't make that move from PSG to Catalonia. According to Luis Suarez, in an interview with Sport, he said Neymar did everything he could to come. Meanwhile, the front page of Marca says Neymar leaves an aftermath in Barcelona. Sid, the simple question, I suppose, is what is that aftermath?
Well, I mean, it's impossible, isn't it, not to have had an impact upon the squad after the kind of pursuit that Barcelona have had of Neymar. Now, you've got a situation in which you have members of the squad, and in particular, of course, Luis Suarez and Lionel Messi, but also Gerard Piqué, who really wanted Neymar to come. And I think you can read between the lines, and forgive me in particular, as I realise now I'm talking to three professional footballers and I'm talking as a journalist, but I think you can read between the lines in what Luis Suarez has said when he says, you know, Neymar did everything he could to come. Now, implicitly there's a suggestion that says, well, if he didn't come then, it's because someone else didn't do enough. And so you have that problem where you've got some players who think, maybe the club could have done more, maybe there was a way of making this happen and we didn't get to that point. At the same time, then you've got players like Ivan Rakitic, Ousmane Dembele. You've even got players like Todibo, who've been told by the club, look, we really want to bring Neymar in, you've got to leave. Those players have said no, and quite rightly so, by the way. Barcelona are offering these players up without having checked with these players first that they would be prepared to go to Paris Saint-Germain. Those players, how must they feel in the aftermath of this? How must even someone like Antoine Griezmann feel to know that he was signed by the club, and then at the same time as he arrives, there are people at the club, including some of his teammates, agitating for the arrival of someone who naturally, at the very least, would be competition for him. And so I think you've got a scenario in which a whole load of people at Barcelona are feeling uneasy by the way this has happened, by the way this has been carried out, and also, of course, by the way it's ended. And then on top of that, you've got a manager who, when he first arrived at Barcelona, suddenly found that he didn't have this player that he wanted. Now, this summer, finds that the club is pursuing someone who, as far as he's concerned, he doesn't necessarily need to integrate, but the whole focus, the whole attention is drawn to him. It's not just a joke when Valverde is asked before the third game of the season, on a scale of 0 to 10, how sick are you of this whole Neymar thing? And he says 9.5.
Sid, what's the reaction amongst the Barcelona fans? Are they crying in the streets of Las Ramblas? Are they so disappointed that Neymar hasn't joined them? Or were they really keen on getting him in the first place?
No, well, look, this is the thing, and I appreciate this is a contradiction because I'm saying that in a way, you know, this is problematic that they haven't got him. But I think it's not so much problematic that they haven't got him, it's problematic that they went for him and they haven't got him. That's the problem part, is the process rather than the outcome. Now, I think fundamentally Barcelona will probably think that, you know what, us not getting Neymar, at the same time as Paris Saint-Germain are stuck with him, and, you know, we probably don't dislike the idea of getting some revenge on Paris Saint-Germain, at the same time as Neymar himself is stuck, and maybe we don't necessarily dislike the idea of Neymar being upset, given that he just walked out on us 2 years ago. And, key point here, he didn't go to Real Madrid. In a way, that's not a bad outcome for Barcelona, and I suspect that most Barcelona fans are probably reasonably contented with that.
Right, let's stop talking about Neymar. Boys, I know you're desperate to talk about him, but not going to. I want to talk about Barcelona in general, Sid. And obviously, every day we put out extra time questions, and without fail, every day someone asks about Valverde and, well, why Barcelona have stuck with him and when he's going to get sacked. Now, is that just a social media thing? Is that the minority? Or is there a general unrest amongst Barcelona supporters that Valverde isn't up to the task?
Well, I mean, you're going to hate me for this, and I hate myself for saying this because this is the way I answer so many questions to you, Dan, but it kind of depends. And by that I mean to say that while I think a lot of the relentlessness and the aggressiveness of the campaign against Valverde on social media is at times incredibly tiresome and incredibly poorly placed as well. I mean, to the extent that you even had Barcelona's president putting out a message the other day after the tragic passing away of Luis Enrique's daughter, and you have fans responding to it saying, Valverde out. Now, of course, the flip side of that is that A, you can't take this too seriously. You can't allow yourself to be drawn into a debate that's driven purely by Twitter. And B, actually, of course, there's an argument to ask questions about Valverde. There's an argument to ask questions about the style of Barcelona. You have to ask about responsibility for 2 Champions League exits in a row, which were both unexpected and also really very poor in the way that they happened, away at Roma and, of course, away at Liverpool. You have to ask about whether this team has really progressed, although I think we probably shouldn't forget what a poor state they were in when Valverde took over, and the sense of decline at that point that he managed to stop and to arrest. And I think you can look at this Leo Messi era, certainly the last 4 or 5 years, since that win in Berlin in 2015 in the Champions League, and say, actually, you know what? if we're going to accept the idea that Messi is miles ahead of everyone else, and frankly in Spain he is absolutely miles ahead of anyone else, have Barcelona really done enough to build a team that functions efficiently and correctly around him? And I think these are all legitimate concerns.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPNFC 7 days a week, subscribe to ESPN+.